Today, shitty rom-coms are the name of the game. The game in this case being Shomin Sample, an anime close to my heart in that I watched it 2 days ago and it pissed me off enough to make me want to make a video on it. It starts off about as reasonable as any rom-com can be, with our main character, Kimito Kagurazaka, being kidnapped off the street by a bunch of buff men in a van, who then twerk on him for a while before dropping him off in front of a private all-girls school, in the middle of nowhere. This is Seikan Jogaku, a hidden high-end academy for educating the noble class ladies of Japan, with one massive problem. You see, all the girls at this school are raised on nothing but comfort and high standards, and when they go out into society, they realise, hang on a minute, it's actually a pretty big shithole, and so they become depressed gamers who never leave their rooms. Like me. But the principals hatched a brilliant plan, to let them experience a normal person before they leave the safety of the academy. And this is where Kimito comes in, as a so-called commoner sample, tasked to let the girls see how normal people behave. But this is of course a harem rom-com, and so as you can imagine, things don't exactly go to plan. You see, according to the school's background check, Kimito hasn't spoken to a girl in years, and instead he gets really well along with the dudes, and so they conclude, hey ho, he must be gay. But he's not. You see, Kimito is actually a really horny teenage boy who's really into thighs. Exactly the opposite of what they were looking for. What happens if they find out about this? Well, he can say goodbye to his balls. So, not only has he been kidnapped, imprisoned, and put to labour for free, he's got to pretend to love big buff dudes at the same time, or he'll lose his testicles. Speaking of thighs though, you'll see a lot of them if you watch the show, because at least once every 5 minutes you'll have a shot at waist level of literally nothing but legs. And the school uniform of this school does not help much, because their skirts are pretty much just strips of fabric that barely cover their crotches. So now he's been introduced to his new class by his new sadistic maid. He's then mobbed by a crowd of rich ladies who've never seen a smartphone before, because supposedly high-end education means that you live in the Middle Ages. And here we're introduced to the first main love interest. And within 30 seconds, she's in love with him. Yeah, this is this kind of show. Reiko, the girl in question, slips and is caught by Kimito in a princess carry, and bang, she's enamored with him. As you may be able to tell, this is not exactly a show that focuses on compelling romance. Girls will, and do, just fall in love with him for the most basic shit. So, another example is the next main heroine. A girl who wants to be the most popular girl in her class, with a tiny issue of not having spoken to a single person the entire year. Kimito explains that perhaps the way to go about this is not to roll around in a circle about the lawn, barking to try and get a fairy to make your wish untrue, but instead to try and talk to them. And I wish I was exaggerating. Next we get this ridiculous close-up shot of her face as her eyes go massive and sparkly, and you have these classic gasp sound effects in the background. As for the other girls who don't fall in love with him for his ability to perform basic logic, that's because they're already in love with him because of some long complex backstory that we'll just randomly get a flashback to, where a mysterious outline of a boy, who is our man Kimito, helps girl X in some random problem that just changes her life and she'll remember him for the rest of her life. Worst of all is the cock blocking. Despite the almost immediate love tensions, there is functionally no progress at all throughout most of the show. Even the wiki describes Kimito as a little dense when it comes to girls' feelings towards him, and combined with his pretend interest in the same sex, don't expect much development for a very long time. As for the plot of the show past the beginning sections, it doesn't even warrant talking about because it's literally so bog standard that it's not even funny, it's just dull. Characters. Well, can't lie, they're not great. They're not exactly bottom of the barrel garbage, but to put it nicely, they are inoffensive. To put it less nicely, they're pretty boring. They're about as you can expect from this kind of show, just kind of bundles of gags and traits. I mean, they have an airhead tsundere with the IQ of two chimps that just batch each other's head in for a banana. They've got a rich young lady with no common sense who's being forced into a marriage she doesn't want to be in. And they've got a samurai clan lady who's defeated by Kimito through pure luck and coincidence, but still decides that he will be her master. Of course, you've also got this, but just consider this off limits. This is illegal. So yeah, you've got clearly a bundle of the most original characters to ever exist. I must say though, they are not as bad as they initially seem, because when you start watching, you will feel an exponential decrease in brain cells as you see how stupid they are. But they kind of stabilize into just being around below average after a while, with one or two exceptions, which I won't spoil in case you watch a show, although I Don't really recommend it, it did quite suck. Again, I'll try to avoid spoilers, but the ending is thankfully not one of the bullshit ones where they don't resolve any of the romances. Or even worse, they end on a hint that maybe in the future someday there'll be a romance. Because, well, they all date. Like all of them, so don't worry about that one. Take what I say with a grain of salt though, because I'm getting this information off a wiki page because there's no way I'm reading the manga of this for the ending. I don't have the time or the patience for that one. Just a warning, again. Supposedly the author rage quit their novel, the manga got axed and so it ended in a really shitty way, and the anime hasn't been renewed in about 7 years after the original source material got ended. So, piece of advice, don't watch this. Don't read this. It's not worth your time. Trust me, there are better alternatives. Just a personal side though, I go, or went, depending on when you're watching this video, to an all-boys school with 2 all-girls schools next to it, who I have good friends at. And I can tell you that this is not what an all-girls school is like. It's much less pleasant in real life. That's been me, and I hope you enjoyed. I take suggestions in the comments, and I post on Friday once every 2 weeks. Or Saturday, depending on your time zone. Maybe Thursday. Anyway, leave a like and subscribe for more. Bye.